What the World Tour Finals did we just witness today?
Oh, can you believe that?
The decaf sip sound always sounds a little different. Welcome to a special Coffee Break Tennis Match Analysis Special. This is something new we've never done. We're going to go a little heavy with highlights and cross our fingers that we don't get in trouble with Tennis TV or ATP. It's a bunch of free advertisement, after all, for Tennis TV, which you probably should subscribe to. Let's go into the first thing that I noticed watching the match today. That was a bad sign. This is from Robbie Koenig on the call for Tennis TV in the beginning of the match, telling us that he had seen some bad stuff going on in the Roger Federer practice session leading up to this match.
Got a bit of an inside scoop yesterday. You were watching Federer practice pretty closely and didn't seem too well.
He looked a little edgy practicing here against Borna Coric. Borna, one of the alternates with Karen Hashanov. Just seemed a little irritated, wasn't happy with the way he was playing, and deep discussions with both Ivan Ljubicic and Severin Luti as coaches.
But then we saw a good sign, since so many people gauge where Roger Federer is with his play by how he's hitting his backhand. Even though he misses this shot, it's a good sign that he's going to be aggressive with the backhand down the line. But it's not much later where we see this missed backhand that is not much of a good sign.
Oof!
Ball's bounced up and hit Roger in the face.
As we see this again. And Nishikori.
Here's Fed mistiming a forehand that he would usually make. Another bad sign of what's to come. A lot of forehand unforced errors, a lot of backhand unforced errors in this match. 34 total unforced errors, and Robbie saying that this is the thing that Roger was struggling with in practice the most, the forehand.
That was a shot that was annoying him yesterday. The forehand wasn't coming out of the slot quite how he wanted it to.
So quickly put this on the screen. Ollie tweeted this is from the Federer press conference after the match, and he said that he had a specific plan on the return today, but he wasn't able to execute it. Here's a great example of a service game that goes totally awry with the return. Now, the frustrating thing, and you'll see this, I'm only going to show highlights from the first set because I feel like the second set was just kind of more of the same, except the difference was that Roger's serve was not as good in the second set, so that's why it wasn't as close. That's why he was able to be broken twice instead of 0 times like in the first set. The frustrating thing in this match was how Roger would get something going good on return against Nishikori. In that first set, there were multiple chances to break. Even though Roger had no break points, he had good games on return where he was one away from opening up some break points, just 1 point away, or had a strong start in the service game and would have great play. Great play. We're going to show you in some of the highlights I have for you to see how Federer can play absolutely perfect using a pretty fast court to his advantage, and then how things can totally go awry and just fall apart and be awful.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, what again?
We don't see that much.
But when Roger's returning, like he said, he had a plan, wasn't able to execute it. A lot of really hard to accept, and you'll see when we look at the stats why this really hurts Roger. Some hard to accept unforced errors, especially on the return of serve. So that is the 10th unforced error for Roger Federer in this match, fairly early in the first set. And listen to what Robbie Koenig says after that miss.
A lot of the unforced errors that we've seen so far from Federer have been mistimed shots.
And he's absolutely right. It's all about timing on these misses for Roger Federer. He did strike the ball fairly well and had a lot of great points. I don't want to make any excuses. I know some people said there's no excuses at this point for Roger Federer. even from those of us who absolutely love the guy. So not an excuse, but I just want to point out that, Roger had a lot of good things going, and it was frustrating that I'm sure for him, even more frustrating, that he just couldn't keep it going when he had it. We've got a couple theories, but here's one from Damien. Maybe this court is so fast that it's not a good thing for Roger because he's not moving as well as he used to get in position. Comment below if you like that theory. I think it's an interesting one, but it comes into question when we see Roger's comments after the match. From the Roger Federer press conference after the match, Roger said, "I think it plays different, or it's definitely slower than I think the last 3 tournaments that I've played. Practice has been all over the place. I practice in Queens, practice on the outside courts here, then center as well, so it's not always exactly the same conditions. Overall, I think I'm hitting the ball okay." So Roger's saying it's slower than the last few places he played. I thought it was looking pretty good when I was watching the match early on. I thought this looks like a fast enough court for Roger to really let the game flow if he has the timing right. Now, former John McEnroe doubles partner, doubles sensation, John McEnroe and Peter Fleming. Peter Fleming commentating like Annabelle Croft, as many of you informed me in the comments below in the last video. Thank you. She's for Sky Sports, I think. Anyways, Peter Fleming, former McEnroe doubles partner, is commentating for Sky Sports, and he has his own theory of what happened with Roger's play in this opening match. Which, by the way, Roger is like the all-time most successful player. He's won it 6 times. He's been there 16 times. He's only failed to make the semifinal stage 1 time, 2008. This is also the first time Roger Federer has lost a round-robin stage match in straight sets at the World Tour Finals. It's definitely very, very bad for Roger, and he's, like he said in his press conference, he needs to forget it and move on right away. So here's what Peter Fleming said. He said, "Federer has to serve better and has got to hit a few more ground strokes in the court." Now, he said that Anderson, Dominic Thiem, not as consistent off the ground as Nishikori. Just like the last year, the loss here at the World Tour Finals for Roger against David Goffin. These guys that, when they're timing the ball really well, can do damage to you on a fast court and don't miss very much and make you play a ton of balls. Very dangerous for Roger Federer, of course, when he doesn't have the rhythm. When Roger's feeling it, he's got the timing there. He can blow these guys away easily because they can't generate as much firepower as him, and he's just better at doing that, the thing that they can do to take advantage of a faster court. Roger can do it even better than them, but when the timing's not there, big trouble. So Fleming points out that it'll be easier against Dominic Thiem and Anderson, although Anderson is playing very, very well. But here's the surprising part to me from Peter Fleming, who says this: "It seemed Roger wasn't willing to do the hard yards. He wasn't willing to grind it out and to get dirty and sweaty. He didn't want to run, instead wanted to hit winners on the first available shot of every rally." So comment below what you think of that. By the way, this is it's obviously it's from Sky Sports, but I got the quote on Express article, and look at how they attribute the quote. Look at the poll quote to the side. The Peter Fleming quote, they just attribute it to Roger Federer. Absolutely excellent work, excellent journalism over at the UK Express. I have a little issue with what Peter Fleming says because this is what everyone wants Roger Federer to do. Like, he's not supposed to put in hard yards and run all over the place. You know, he's getting older. He's supposed to dazzle you with incredible shot making and winners out of nowhere and always putting the pressure on the opponent. In this match, funny enough, Nishikori was better at putting pressure on the opponent. I have a couple big takeaways for you, and that is simply that if you look at the stats, Nishikori came to net more frequently than Roger Federer. That's not a good sign here. And Nishikori hit the forehand harder than Roger did in this match. And what was it, Justin Gimelstob maybe? I was switching. I was listening to Tennis Channel coverage. I was also watching on my phone as I walked around the house. I can't stay in one place during these big Fed matches. But Gimelstob was talking about how Nishikori is hitting his forehand, and they showed the stats, much harder on average compared to the match in Paris, the match in, was it Shanghai or Basel where they played? Either way, Roger beat Nishikori twice leading up to this match in the last 5-6 weeks. Nishikori hit it harder, and as a consequence of that, Roger's average forehand speed went down because he was playing a more defensive forehand because Nishikori was always going so hard at him with his own forehand. That, if you can remember back to last year, was the exact thing we heard with David Goffin, and that loss, David Goffin was actually out-hitting Roger on the ground stroke pace. The attack from David Goffin really ramping up, going as hard as he could after his ground strokes. made Federer more defensive, and his numbers went down. Another bad thing from this match, and different from what Nishikori did. This is what Nishikori said after the match in his presser. I'm glad to win today. It's never easy to play my idol, which is kind of crazy to hear. You know, you're playing people who idolize you as a child. That's how old Roger is. So, you know, don't be too frustrated out there. This is how it was always going to be. As Roger gets older, if he's going to win big titles still, there's going to be a lot of winning ugly Brad Gilbert moments. It's just the way he's going to have to do it at times. There's going to be a lot of beautiful, incredible serving and shot making. Roger's always going to have that. But he's not going to be able to just slip into a more defensive mode and run around and get sweaty and dirty, put into hard yards, as Peter Fleming says here, because it's just not viable anymore. It's just going to run him down, and he's going to play even more inconsistently if he gets worn the heck out playing super defensive points. I had to change something for sure, said Nishikori. I lost to him twice in the last 2 months. I tried to play a little bit more aggressive with my forehand, put a little bit of pressure more. Some moments there were some lucky points, but I played well today. And that's true from Nishikori. Just like in that Djokovic match that we saw in Paris, the semifinals, Federer and Djokovic, some of the break points Roger saved were just pure luck. Some of the stuff that went Nishikori's way today was a little bit of luck. But he played well enough. I saw one tweet. By the way, you can follow me at on Twitter at CoffeeBreak10s. TENS is my Twitter name. Somebody tweeted me today that I think they said Nishikori had, 4? We're going to look at the stats in a moment. 4 winners, something really low, and said that's amazing that he won with so few winners. But not so amazing because Roger had 34 unforced errors. Let's keep looking at some of the points stats that I handpicked. So here was some excellent Federer play on serve to get to 5-4 leading. Nishikori serving at 4-5. This game is hard to accept. Almost as hard as the next Nishikori game, but we'll talk about this one first. Here's one of the best points Roger Federer put together for the entire match. When you saw that, it felt like old times again for Fed fans, for Fed heads around the world. You thought, this is where Roger breaks serve. One set up, runs away with it, totally takes control of this match. So here Fed gets to 30-30. You have to think that if he could have put those 2 returns in play before that point, so he's down 15-30, gets to 30-30, he could have been up 30-15. That point, if he just gets one, let's say he puts both those returns in play and just wins one of the rallies off the return, that's 15-30 when he hits a great return and great play to win that point. 15-40, Kei Nishikori serving 2 break point opportunities would have been huge here.
The point.
This brings us to 15 unforced errors in the first set from Roger, and here is number 16, a wild backhand miss. But followed up with a great shot, a great backhand up the line. A great backhand follows a terrible backhand. Very frustrating for Fed fans and Federer himself today. Now here's the 5-6 game. This one's hard to take.
Without 13.
In the press conference, Federer said he wasn't angry. He was just smacking the ball into the high into the crowd because he wasn't angry. The umpire doesn't think so. The umpire thinks Roger's very angry. This is a game where, Roger could have broke here and won the set without serving it out. He had chances in this game. This was a great return, and obviously if Roger was angry, if he's playing it down a little bit, but he was very angry maybe, I totally understand why, because this was a great return. Look what Nishikori does to it. Of course, Roger gets the ball abuse warning for blasting the ball into the crowd.
Federer has hardly connected on a single return, but when he does,
Warning, Mr. Federer.
Federer not happy about the code violation that he's received for ball abuse.
And then Roger loses 6 points in a row in the tiebreaker. A lot of them are pretty ugly. Nishikori wins the tiebreaker. This puts him at 17-5 in tiebreakers this year. That's a pretty good number. Look what Ollie dug up. Now, the ATP has this under pressure stat they've created. Nishikori leads everyone. He's number 1 in the world for the ATP under pressure stat this year. How do they get that? Percentage of break points converted. A little bit higher than Federer, who's at 4th place in this chart. Break points saved a little lower than Roger because the Nishikori serve's not as good, but that just goes to show you how well Nishikori's playing under pressure. He doesn't have as good of a weapon, a tool in the serve to save break points, and yet he's saving pretty close to the number that Roger has. Percentage of tie breaks won higher than everyone except Taro Daniel. Deciding sets won very high for Nishikori, and all of those averages together make him the most clutch player of the year. You know, this stat, I think it's good, but what has Nishikori's big accomplishment been this year when he's been the most clutch player? It's really more about peaking and being the most clutch at the biggest moments, the biggest tournaments. But he did it today. Give him credit. If Nishikori finds a way to win this whole thing, then, yeah, there'll be something to show for this year, just like Grigor Dimitrov had last year. All right, let's look at some stats. This is why Roger, despite he had more unforced errors I think he had 20 unforced errors in the first set and only 10 in the second, yet the second wasn't as good because the serve wasn't nearly as good. Less unforced errors, but the serve didn't win him as many points. This was the Nishikori Paris match, their most recent matchup. Look at the numbers here for Federer on serve, for Federer on first serve. He was winning 97%. He was hitting the spots very well. Roger was hitting spots pretty well in the first set, not so well in the second set. Let's look at set 1. Roger, -8 differential. Nishikori, -10. It really hurts to win this. I think that's part of why Roger had a little minor temper tantrum where he says later that he's not angry, because he knew that was his chance, and he knows that going to a tiebreak just sucks. As Roger has said in the past, doesn't like going to tiebreaks because anything, no matter how you've been playing, anything can happen, and we saw the worst thing you could imagine happened if you're a Fed fan. There's more backhand unforced errors, 10-7 than the forehand here. 7 for 7 at the net for Roger. That's good, but Nishikori, even though he won less, he came 9 times. That's a little bit more. I want to say, this is a guess, but I feel like that's putting a little more pressure on Roger because most people just don't come to the net off of their serves. Total points won. Nishikori only 1 ahead, and the way that tiebreaker was a beatdown, 1 ahead is not a lot. Federer, not as good, and this is mostly because of missed returns and also just early unforced errors. Not as good as in the points under 5, the rally number under 5. We know these short points are so important now, especially on fast courts. First strike tennis is key, especially for Roger Federer's game. Didn't do it as well. Roger did better in the longer rallies. 5-9, he's up 4. Over 9, 2-1. Not a lot of those, but Roger won 2 out of 3. You can see Nishikori's got him in the RPM, or rotations per second, RPS, on the forehand side, definitely in the miles per hour. First serve speed, Federer's ahead. Second serve speed, Federer's well ahead. Return serves number, Roger was ahead for a lot of this first set, but by the end of that tiebreaker, by the end of that first set, Nishikori well ahead on return serves put in play. And that's not a good sign, and that's going to continue. Real quick, we'll look at Roger. More first serves in, a lot more in this set. That makes it hurt. Winning more on first serve, tied on second serve. Roger has the edge by a lot. 12% more first serves in when you're up on first serve 1 and you're tied on second serve 1. This should have been a Roger Federer. He should have won. He should have won this set. He should have found a way to break. He's got to be really frustrated. Go to the match numbers. So Roger, 9 out of 11 for the match. But remember, what was it, 7 for 7 in the first set? So he only came to net 4 times in the second set. Nishikori, only a total of 13, but that's more than Roger. That's not something you want to see unless it's just terribly backfiring. But Nishikori wins most of those points. Federer even on the aces, the double faults. That's not good for him. 4 double faults is a lot for Roger. 4 aces is not very many for Roger. Federer does better to get more returns in play in the second set, and he even gets a break, but it doesn't matter because the serve lets him down so badly. Nishikori even further out ahead in the under 5 shots by the end of the match. They end up finishing even on the 5-9. Not many over 9 shot rallies, but Roger did win that. Nishikori puts 11% more returns in play than Roger. That definitely hurt. For the match, Roger still wins in the first serve in department, not by much. The first serve win number comes out to be the same. Not very good for Roger. He should be able to hurt Nishikori more off the first serve than that, and he should be winning more off the first serve than that. But he could have won, but this is where you really see the second set really brought the numbers down on the second serve. Nishikori doing 9% better, and that's pretty much the story of the match. You're only as good as your second serve in this match. And the erratic, unforced errors. So comment below, do you see a path to Roger getting the 100th title of his career here? We're going to wrap this up and get out of here. Thank you for watching A Coffee Break Tennis. Hit a little outro music for you while I'll tell you my plan here. I think Dominic Thiem is a dream matchup next. Roger has a stat, an incredible stat. I believe he's 15-0 in the second round robin match at this tournament. Is it 15-0? This is his 16th appearance. That would make sense. So is he going to make it 16-0? Dominic Thiem, I watched that match with Kevin Anderson. Dominic Thiem, God bless him, he was great at times, and he had some incredible shots, saved some match points, but he just isn't well equipped to play these indoor fast courts. He's lost to a lot of players who are not the greatest on tour, that Roger Federer should be able to do better than in a match against Dominic Thiem. So this is just what the doctor ordered. It's going to be a lot easier for Roger Federer to pick apart Dominic Thiem on this court, even if Roger thinks it's a little slow. Kevin Anderson is playing very well. Nishikori will have a hard time beating Kevin Anderson. Roger can beat Kevin Anderson if he can get the confidence he needs on this court, on this surface here at this tournament against Dominic Thiem. We could argue that he has a good chance to beat Kevin Anderson. We could still see Roger get into those semifinals and have a chance to win this, but there's no denying it's very disappointing. Comment below. And we'll be back very soon. We'll be watching the matches very closely this week, making a lot of videos. Comment below what you think about this format with all these highlights. See ya!